is the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, and I'm willing to bet that you've seen thousands of its little brother, the ASX, getting around on Aussie roads. This car though is the ASX's bigger, fresher, faster, and more expensive bigger brother.
But what about this, the Honda HR-V, a veritable stalwart of the compact SUV scene and an Australian favourite. But you might not believe it, this car launched about 2013 and it's starting to sprout a few grey hairs. So what we want to find out is, can this car still put up a strong fight against a newer and perhaps more compelling option?
Okay Dan, I thought we'd start in the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross because for once, the Mitsubishi in a comparison test is the newer car.
Hard to believe.
It is. No, both these cars have been treated to a recent update, but in terms of their life cycles, the Mitsubishi is much younger than the HR-V because this has been around for about 2.5 years, but the Honda is getting towards the end of its life cycle.
But despite this being the newer of the two, it isn't doing it too many favours in sales because, of course, Mitsubishi sells twice the number of ASXs, this car's baby brother.
Yeah, so it's outsold by the older, cheaper SUV that Mitsubishi makes, which is, I guess, makes sense because, you know, value is a big ticket item for a lot of people out there.
And in Australia, money talks.
Absolutely. But what exactly separates an Eclipse Cross from an ASX?
For a start, the engine. So in this, it's newer, more sophisticated, smaller, but turbocharged.
Yes.
Then there is the space. We've got more space on the inside. It's a bigger car on the outside. Loads of gear, and of course, it is newer.
Yep. So on paper, this is the one to have. It's got all of the things you want. It's newer, better engine, more gear, but of course it is more money.
Yeah, how much more though?
Oh, well, roughly about $7,000. The ASX range starts 24 grand. This starts at 30 grand.
Okay.
And today we are in the LS, which is the one up from bottom of the range. It's the all-wheel drive version though, so this car's about 34.5 grand.
And if you went for the two-wheel drive version, it's about 2 grand less?
That's right, yeah. But every Eclipse Cross gets a decent amount of equipment, you know, 8-inch infotainment screen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto.
There's good amount of safety and driver assistance systems. You get lane departure warning, but weirdly no blind spot monitor.
Yeah, in the bottom models you don't, which is a bit of a strange admission because you think they sort of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But you do get reversing camera, cruise control, 18-inch wheels.
And they look lovely. Good set of wheels. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. But there's one thing that this update has taken away.
The one distinguishing feature it had, the lovely tailgate with the little glass sort of letterbox in it.
I know, I really liked that element of the original Eclipse Cross. You know, it was a little bit dorky, but it was kind of individual. I liked it, and it reminded me of a Honda CRX.
Which is one of the coolest cars in the world, so yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But you do get a lot more with this recent update, including just more car, because they've made it bigger.
Yeah, how good is that? Like, normally updates are just a facelift and some extra different trim colours, but this you actually get more car.
Yeah, absolutely. So 140 mils or thereabouts extra length, which is also translated into more boot space.
Yes, more space in the rear seats. We'll come to those a little bit later.
Yep.
But the crucial thing is it's actually put up into the next segment. So it used to be compact, now it's regarded as a small SUV.
Yep, and you do feel that in here. There's lots of room. You know, you and I are probably, I wouldn't want to get any closer to you. I try not to.
I don't bite hard.
But there is a good amount of space. We'll do a side-by-side for the rear seat comparison when we pull up a little bit later between the two cars. But yeah, it does feel definitely on the larger side for a small SUV.
And does that translate to the way it drives though? Bigger cars, heavier cars generally start to feel it?
A little bit, yeah. Although, I've got to say, I don't have many complaints about the way this car drives. I think it is perfectly acceptable. One real positive is that engine. Yes. Especially the torque figure, because you really can feel that in day-to-day driving. It's quite zippy.
And it's instant-ish as well, isn't it? You get that responsiveness. There we go. The CVT responds really nicely. Of course, this car has a continuously variable transmission, automatic.
Which usually is a recipe for fun killing zone, isn't it?
That's right.
Nobody sees a CVT and goes, oh, it's going to be fun to drive.
You see the 3 little letters and your heart sinks.
But in this case, it's decent.
It's actually, I think, one of the best interpretations I've seen in a while.
It has 8 sort of artificially stepped ratios, and it does a good job.
Yes, good pairing with that engine. As I say, for this kind of driving around town, you've got that instant torque, and I think it's a really, really good match and a good pairing.
Yep.
But also surprising was the ride, I thought. We hit it with some pretty serious speed bumps earlier on some of these more finer imperfections.
Yep.
It's actually a really, really decent ride. It suffers slightly in more body roll than you would perhaps want, but let's be honest and think about how this car is going to be driven.
Yeah, on 18-inch wheels, I think the ride and handling package is, you know, very well suited to what this car is going to be doing, which is pretty much what we're doing today, just cruising around town in urban environments, car parks, that kind of thing. And vision out is a very important thing, and it's good. You're not going to lose a car in your blind spot or anything like that, like you might in a Toyota CHR, for example.
Yes. And you do sit quite high, obviously people like SUVs, because the dominating position they give you over other road users. The view out is excellent, although I found that I couldn't really put that seat low enough.
Yeah, I'm the same. I got in here and wanted the seat to go lower, but I think as an overall package, this car doesn't do a lot wrong. What we haven't answered yet is whether you would take this or the Honda Hurv. So let's go and jump in that car, see what it's like.
This is the 2020 HRV.
Yep.
And that's because it had a little update in 2020, Alex. Not that you could tell particularly.
No, little update is an apt description, Dan, because visually it's the same, suspension-wise it's still the same. We get the same 1.8 litre 4-cylinder engine paired with a CVT transmission.
But you get that.
That is the only thing that's new, yes.
That's it. You get a 7-inch touchscreen, which is of course an inch smaller than the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross. That's it. Otherwise, though, unchanged. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because one of the nicest things I can say about this car is even though it's a billion years old, it still looks great and it is not aged a day. Absolutely.
I think in the the beauty pageant between these two, this car is the much more handsome vehicle. It's aged really well in that regard. Actually, I think the wheels are really nice. And this one is the RS version.
Which means you get 650 horsepower and adaptive suspension. No, you don't. All you get is some slightly sporty exterior touches, which do actually do a really great job. Just before, there was a standard HRV that came and parked next to us, and it really highlighted those lovely black gloss exterior details, the nicer wheels. It's a genuinely good looking thing.
Yeah, I think RS is apt for this car because the suspension does feel sportier, which is another way of saying a bit firmer than you get in the Mitsubishi.
Yes, definitely. And that makes this one, for me, the driver's pick. If you're after a fun time behind the wheel, this certainly has the other one beaten.
Except for when it comes to the engine, because 1.8 versus 1.5 turbo in the Mitsubishi, this car isn't as strong, doesn't have the same amount of performance.
No, about the same amount of power, but torque is the major shortcoming.
Yeah, absolutely. 172 Newton meters in this one and 250 Newton meters in the Mitsubishi, and you do notice that difference.
Yeah, once you get it wound up and moving, you can feel the similar power output, but that's not really what you want in an engine like this or a car like this. You want that useful low-down torque, and it really does suffer a little bit there. The CVT, also a CVT in this car, responds pretty well, but also maybe just starting to show its age and its programming lacking there.
Yeah, it's not quite as quick-witted and as fast to react as you get in the Eclipse Cross, unfortunately. So, again, a bit of a mixed bag. I think the engine in the Mitsubishi is superior. I think the ride in the Mitsubishi is also superior, but I think in terms of dynamic fun, this might be the pick.
Absolutely right. Certainly good things to say about the steering. It's as light as you want in a little city runaround, but also not completely disconnected. Like, I can feel that there's stuff going on.
Calm down, you hoonigan.
I know, it's disgraceful, isn't it? This is two-wheel drive, whereas the Mitsubishi was four-wheel drive, and I think really that's the way to go in a car like this. No one is ever going to go off-road in a compact SUV, and this is doing everything we want it to around here. When you don't have four-wheel drive, obviously efficiency, there's advantages.
Less weight, less complication.
So this is probably the pick for me. The RS, we're looking at the top of the range, there's only one above it, so it's around about even pegging on pricing as well.
It is, and I think Honda's kind of recognised that, and they've made the decision for you in terms of two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, because you cannot get an all-wheel drive version of the HRV. What you also don't get in this car is the level of active safety gear that we are coming to expect from this segment. That's one area where this car is really betraying its age, I'm afraid. It does have AEB, but it's only up to about 30 k's an hour, and it doesn't recognise cyclists or pedestrians.
Oh, now you see, most people might assume that all AEBs are the same, but they're not, and that's a very good point made, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. No high-speed AEB, and also no AEB in reverse in this car either. No rear cross traffic alert, so it is missing a few key systems.
But some of the other strong points are the cabin is actually really, really well upholstered. We're loving this material on the door here, which is excessively padded.
It is the softest of soft touches.
Lovely. I could fall asleep on that. And then this nice sort of high density sort of foam on the dash, which is another feel. But it's this strange feature here. Why are there 3 vents in a row? Like, do you need a lot of cooling, Alex?
I run hot, Dan. You know this.
You do. I've said that about you before.
What I don't like is this shiny sort of hard plastic on the dash. And some of the other lower plastics are a little bit undesirable as well, but good amount of storage in here. You know, there's these big central cup holders here, which we are making full use of at the moment. They've also got a bit of a false floor in there, so you can push through the floor for bigger bottles, which I like.
While the level of equipment in here is pretty good and the quality of the materials is excellent, the screen, even though it's new, does let it down slightly because the resolution is not brilliant and the graphics aren't fab. And when you connect through to the reverse camera or Honda's USP blind spot camera over there, the resolution is terrible. It looks like it was shot in the 80s.
I'm very disappointed with this screen actually, because it's kind of the headline feature of this very light update. And yes, it's great that it's now a touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. However, as you mentioned, the resolution just isn't quite what you want it to be, and some of the menus are a little bit confusing. And the blind spot camera, when you use it for the left side only, that is a good feature. It was a great feature in 2013 when it first came out, but I actually find it a bit annoying to use now because it takes up the same screen as when you've got Apple CarPlay and your maps configured. So when you're going around a corner or you've got your indicator turned on, you can't see your map at the same time.
You would probably prefer a system much like Genesis or Hyundai, where they project one of the images from either side in those models onto a digital dash. This, of course, doesn't have a digital dash. It's got a sort of very aging kind of digital screen over here, and it's conventional dials for the tachometer and speedometer as well.
So there are a few things in here that's starting to betray this car's age. And I think on balance, the engine, the ride handling package, the space that you get for the money and the equipment and the safety systems you get for the money, they're all superior in the Mitsubishi. But there's one thing this car does that is far superior to the Mitsubishi, and that's how it utilizes its space.
Yes, exactly. And of course its looks. On the outside, it still is easily the more handsome, but the key feature that we need to explore a little bit more fully is on the inside.
Yeah, it's those magic seats.
Oh, let's have a closer look.
All right, Dan, time to talk about boot spaces and rear seats, because very important in this segment. They're going to be full of kids, groceries, dogs, footballs, soccer balls, everything. So, like we mentioned in car, this one has a bit of an ace up its sleeve in that it has something called magic seats.
Yes, we're going to have a look at them in a second, but first of all, let's focus on the boot itself.
Boot space, because it's pretty impressive.
Yes, headlining for me is this. Few manufacturers are doing this kind of thing. Does away with the cumbersome parcel shelf.
Very clever. And you folded that expertly. Normally they spring back and
it
clock you on the chin or
goes
something.
into little rails rather than those silly strings hanging down.
The boot itself is actually very impressive. 437 litres, one of the largest in this class. The boot floor is really low and flat, which I like. So you're going to fit lots of stuff in there, you know, a pram, everything's going to fit in there very easily.
And underneath that boot floor is a space saver spare wheel.
And a couple of little cubby holes for hidden items,
yes,
which I like.
But those magic seats you talked about, let's go and put our rumps on them, shall we?
All right, let's do it.
Well, back here, lots of space, surprising amounts of space actually, and we're sitting on the aforementioned magic seats. Not that you'd know it for now, they just appear to be quite normal, nice, comfortable, supportive seats.
Lots of under-thigh support. The backrest angle is nice and natural. Good amount of headroom, heaps of knee room and toe room. For a car that is, you know, much smaller than that Eclipse Cross, there's heaps of room back here.
Surprisingly so. Cozy ambience for this lovely black roofline and black interior. No fold-down centre armrest, unfortunately.
No,
I like
that's
that.
A bummer. No rear air vents either.
But we do have a 12-volt power outlet back here and one cup holder down there.
No USB though. That's a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, perhaps showing its age,
unfortunately. But one thing that has aged perfectly are these magic seats. Let's show the brilliance of what you can do with these seats, which is the way that they fold. Up goes one, down goes that one, and you have a positively cavernous space. Or if you want to fit something flat, watch how these fold into the floor. Do the same on your side, Dan, and you have practically a van.
That is massive.
It's massive. I am running a large SUV as a long-termer, and I think the space in there is actually more than you get in a big SUV. It's incredible.
Truly remarkable. Quite why other manufacturers haven't been copying that, I have no idea, because it is a brilliant feature.
This car does not have it.
No, it doesn't. And it has a smaller boot.
It does. 405 litres plays 437. And the boot floor itself is higher.
It has this conventional blind rather than the cool minimalist sort of flappy one.
Yep.
Space saver tyre underneath here, just like the Honda.
It does. This car does have 3 top tether mounts, 4 child seats in the back though, which is handy. The Honda only has 2. But let's check out the back seat, see if it actually is possible or not. All right, initial impressions back here are...
Is it me or is it just a bit more claustrophobic and cramped?
It is. Yeah, you do feel much more hemmed in here, even though this is a larger car. It's almost as though the body seems to taper back. I've got less headroom.
Yeah, it feels narrower towards the side of my head.
It really does. And the rear seat itself, you know, we feel much closer.
Yeah.
I don't think the seat is quite as comfy as the Honda either.
It's not as supportive. Lots of knee room, loads of toe room, bordering on storage underneath that seat in front. It's actually really, really spacious. And you do get adjustable seat backs as well if you want a little bit more recline.
You do. And you get a central armrest, which
yes.
you don't get in the Honda. You don't get rear air vents or rear USB, but you do get a 12-volt socket, so same as the Honda there. Only 1 map pocket back here. You get 2 in the Honda.
I've never suffered from map pocket shortage, you know what I mean? I don't mind that, that's fine.
I think both back seats are surprisingly roomy, but I think in terms of space, comfort, practicality, the Honda takes the win.
100%.
All right. Picking an overall winner between these two is actually trickier than I thought it was going to be this morning, given the age difference between the two cars, but they have different strengths and weaknesses, don't they?
Totally, and for me it's come down to a head or heart decision. But ultimately, Alex, as it always does, it comes down to the scores. So let's get some of them on the doors. While the Eclipse Cross offers the best ride quality, the HRV's smaller dimensions and livelier chassis was the most fun to pilot. With overall bigger dimensions, the Mitsubishi offers generous space in all areas, but the Honda wins back points for innovative storage features, and it's a dead heat here. The Eclipse Cross has plenty of features that make day-to-day use practical and easy, but the Honda's Magic seats are unique and earn it almost top marks. With a more powerful and efficient turbocharged engine, the Mitsubishi's muscle makes more sense, regardless of the driving duties. In sporty RS trim, the Honda has a good selection of aesthetic tweaks and luxury touches, but its technology and safety systems look a little dated compared with the more modern Mitsubishi. The plucky HRV continues to be a convincing small SUV even in its twilight years, thanks mostly to its clever packaging and ageless styling. However, the Eclipse Cross is newer, has a stronger engine and more comprehensive safety suite. In this head versus heart decision, the Eclipse Cross takes the overall win.
If you're still watching this video, thank you. Congratulations, not many people make it through right to the end, so well done. As a gift, let's give you some new videos to watch. You know, we'll have some of them hopefully on Dan's head. And subscribe.
Yes, of course, if you like this, then do the right thing and show your appreciation with a like, or even better, why don't you subscribe, and then you'll know about all of our new videos when they go live.